Wow, we got a lot of glare today, so I'm apologizing for the squinty eyes. I don't have my sunglasses on, but it's another Saturday of planting. We've got a mission today to put in probably 2,600 plants. A large amount of that's going to be ranunculus. I got the kids typewriting. What is this again? Bupleurum or larkspur? Larkspur? Those are the two plants I'm not... Is that parsley? Parsley. We are planting some parsley today, otherwise known as larkspur. And that's about 660. Probably could have done a few more, but I don't know if we needed more. And we're going down a row here. The spacing is 6 inches. We put fabric down, even though there's not going to be a lot of weed growth in the winter. The reason I like to put fabric down compared to last year is that when it just gets wet and mucky and slippery with freezes and thaws, it's a real mess to deal with. And last year when we had planted these, we did no fabric, and then we had ended up putting fabric in the walking paths. So I just went ahead and burned the 6-inch fabric here, and that way we have a good couple of rows here. So we're planting 2 winter rows out in the field. It's going to be parsley, otherwise known as larkspur by those who are actually real flower farmers. And then over here is going to be some bupleurum. That's the one that deals a little bit, or struggles a little bit with like mucky or muddy soil. So we're trying to avoid planting it at the end of our rows. We have a slope on our property. So last year we kind of planted half the row as larkspur and the other half is bupleurum. And we had a lot of loss and dieback on the bupleurum because of how wet its feet got. So we're trying to avoid some of that this year. But we're probably going to have about 200 spaces left in this last row after we finish the larkspur. And then this row is going to get a big February planting of field snapdragons as well. So that will be, a much nicer, stouter plant, although it will still struggle with some of the end of our rows. It just is what it is. We kind of do a balance between being sloped and dealing with some of the end of row pooling of water that can happen. It'd be nice to probably build some swales and help move that water away from the end of the rows, but dealing with some 10-15% loss at the end of the rows that might happen is okay. So that's our mission in the field today. I'm sure Alex is going to hop on this video to talk about what we're going to do in the tunnel, but this is going to be the big ranunculus planting. And she's getting those corms prepped right now. We're getting them soaking to turn them from their little shriveled octopuses into looking a little more plump as they uptake that water. And then we're going to do a root shield soak for about 15 minutes. So that's going to be very exciting to watch that happen in the tunnel. So we're looking forward to seeing that. But let's get the rest of these larkspur in the ground.
Hi everyone, it is planting day, big planting weekend. Eric and the kids you just saw were out planting our larkspur. We did 3 trays of larkspur, the QIS mix, which is about 600 plugs. They go out in our field because they're super hardy and we don't really have to cover them that much. And it was helpful to have the kids plant because I have a ton of work ahead of me this afternoon. In these buckets are soaking 2,000 ranunculus corms, which is what I need to plant this afternoon, and it's what we're going to grow on our farm next year. We are a year 4 Oklahoma well, I get to say year 4 because we're heading into year 4. I used to say year 3, but we are heading into year 4. Woohoo! Oklahoma flower farm that sells retail market bouquets from our roadside stand. Last year we grew 1,300 ranunculus, which is our first time growing ranunculus in mass and selling them. If you want to watch those videos, we have 2 great ones that I will link. It was planting them last year. You can see the varieties we chose last year because it's actually fairly different this year, different colors and stuff. And then also I did an hour-long Ranunculus 101 video that's like everything you might possibly want to know about ranunculus. That's the one to look at. This one's going to show you a lot of visuals. That one was a great one to take notes. If you're also new or you've been kind of on the fence about it, we also have a Patreon channel where it's a monthly fee, but we do way more content over there. We do like monthly downloads and cheat sheets. Like we have a ranunculus one where I typed up all the notes for you so you don't have to watch me for an hour. I put all of my notes together for you. We do Q&As. I'm available to answer tons of questions. We do other videos. We do farm chat videos where there's a couple extra videos a week, all that fun stuff, but I'll link it in the description. But let's do the really fun part about making flower farming videos is talking about the flowers we're going to grow and looking at all the beautiful blooms on the screen. In all of our buckets, They're soaking, and they're soaking by individual color. I'm sure that there's more efficient way to do it with less buckets, but I like my buckets. I like my labeling. The ones that we clearly ordered a ton of quantity wise are in the mesh bags. Ones that we maybe only ordered like 100 or 200 of came in paper bags, and so they're just dumped out on their own in the buckets. But I put a little sticker with a label so I know what colors they are and stuff when they're soaking, so I don't get too mixed up. And then they'll have a label in the field. But these guys, these corms, are going to soak for about 2-3 hours until they get much plumper and not as dried out. This is the one we grow the most of. We'll talk about that variety. But this one is 600. 600 are in here, which is exciting. So let's go through a little bit of the colors and maybe a little bit of my thought process on how I chose them.
Not tracking.
I'm not. Up here. So we're growing all Elegance series Ranunculus this year. Last year we grew Amandine and Elegance. I liked them both, but I have realized I like finding 1 or 2 vendors I like ordering from and being able to put in one order and then have it be coming from them in one shipment. It helps with our accounting. It helps just not having to keep track of like, I ordered from like 3 or 4 different people and it's all over the place and stuff. And I really like Ownings. I like the company. I really like the quality and I like their customer service, all that kind of stuff. I know, I said that and I was like, ah.
You have to tell a joke.
Well, the last time I emailed Ownings, they weren't as friendly, but they're also super stressed right now because it's like the biggest time of year for them shipping everything out. So we'll let it slide because we all have our customer service hiccups. So I'd hate to be like super harsh on one instance. I'm sure I've not been the most friendly when I've been super stressed. Anyways, Ownings sells only a couple different varieties. The same goes with Ball and Leo and those other ones. I really liked Elegance last year. And I didn't necessarily like it way and above Amandine. Like I'd never grow Amandine again, but Ranunculus or Elegance was beautiful. It did really well for us. I really like all the color choices that Ownings has. And it was just easier to put in one Ranunculus order, know it's coming in one shipment from them, put it on our accounting books and just be done with it. Also last year, if you watched our video, Ball lost our corms and it was pretty stressful for a couple weeks. And I'm not saying that's typical of them.
I keep forgetting about that.
What?
Can you imagine if we had only gotten, 700 Ranunculus?
I know. We needed like 2,000 last year for our demand, and we almost only planted 500. We never know what's about to happen with the demand. Watch, we need like 3,000 and not 2,000. But we don't have the space in our tunnel. We've maxed out our tunnel. So I'm not saying Ball would have lost our corms again, but also I just was like, I don't want to deal with that. So we went Ownings and we went all Elegance, and I did a couple that were our favorite colors. I reordered them, but because I was doing one order with Ownings in the Elegance series and we're growing 2,000 corms, I decided to do more, like a lot more colors to also see and experience like what they're doing. So I'll just go through here in my buckets and let you know what I have. So this one is, and we'll put pictures on the screen because some of them are like obviously in like Italian because Elegance is an Italian brand. And yeah, I might not remember exactly what they look like. But this one is Viola, which is going to be a purple. So Viola. We have here Hot Pink. I'm a pink girl, so I really liked this one. Obviously, you can have like 16 different shades of pink. This one is probably one of the most popular colors and it sells out really quickly, and I ordered it in March, and it's Salmone. I would have just said salmon like an American, but I've heard it pronounced Salmone, which is a salmon peachy color. It should look really, really nice.
You should give the size.
Oh, we can talk about that at the end. We'll talk about that at the end because then I can like hold up too and you can kind of see the difference. This one is Clementine. We grew this one last year and this was Eric's favorite. This one had like crazy, we'll use our own picture for this one, just crazy concentric rings of like the perfect quintessential ranunculus. So this was Clementine. What do we have here hiding? This one is Giallo. I would have pronounced it in a Spanish way, but in Italian it's giallo. More clementine. Let me see. Did I just order a ton of clementine? I did, because it's Eric's favorite. I ordered 300 clementines. So 2 different buckets. And then we have Bianco Striato. This one, off the top of my head, you're looking at the picture, but it's a one where it has like the tips are edged with a different color than the main petals, that I think will look really unique and striking for our customers because they wouldn't have seen it from us last year. We've got Rosa back here, another pink. I'll skip big bucket. And look, we have Bianco, which I'm assuming is a straight white. We have Bianco. I don't normally grow white because it's not the best for retail, but white ranunculus is just stunning. And then you have Crema, which is going to be an off-white. In the big giant bucket, we have the Dulce Vita. Shoot, I just spaced on the name. It's the big mix that they do. It's the Dulce Vita mix. And you get a discount, obviously, because it's bulk. I think there's 600 in here, so the corm price goes down a bit. And it's a mix of all different peachy, creamy pastels. And we grew this one last year, and it was awesome. Again, I'll put our own picture up on the screen because we grew that mix, and I really, really loved it. Our customers loved it. So Eric mentioned the sizes. So every corm and bulb is graded in a size, usually by like how many eyes it has, or like with a tulip, the size. Same with ranunculus, it has a size. And you can buy a what's called a 4-5, which is one corm, or a 5-7. The 5-7 is going to be bigger than the 4-5, but it's going to cost more. But typically the bigger the corm or bulb, the bigger the bloom, or the more stems you're going to get. This is really distracting. Stop it. I know where the 4-5s are. Just let me do it. It's over here.
I can't believe it adds up to 2,000.
Yeah, well, because this one is like the big one. You're going to get more stems from a larger ranunculus corm. So as much as possible, I try to buy 5-7s, but if there was a particular color and it was only in 4-5, or if they run out, they'll bump you down a size and you'll get a substitution in a 4-5. So an example would be, let's do, yeah, but Salmone is huge because look at this. This is Salmone 5-7. And this is Giallo 5-7.
And then what's a 4-5?
And then this is don't let me forget the order. This is the Bianco Striato.
Jeez.
Yeah, 4-5s are very small. You want to avoid.
Come on.
If you can.
Tilt down. 4,
It's
5,
not
5-7, big 5-7.
Yeah, it's not going to be like massive difference, but you probably, if you did like a really technical stem count, you'd probably get like 3 to 5 stems versus like 5 to 7 stems sort of thing. But the striato seemed super interesting, and then also the Bianco was a 4-5. Everything else for us is a 5-7. But they're about at the end of their soaking. I do about 2 hours. What we do next is ranunculus in particular, and a lot of things that you plant in the fall that have to survive into winter and into spring to bloom can be really susceptible to root rot and like a lot of funky fungal issues in the soil because of the moisture and what's going on. And so after researching and looking at AFCFG stuff, talking to Jenny Marks, who's like the ranunculus queen, they all soak their corms in what's called root shield. And root shield is like the happy fungi that eats the bad stuff. So you're kind of coating the corms in what's going to protect them if they try to get attacked. I will say root shield is very expensive. And if you're only doing like a couple hundred ranunculus, I don't think it's profitable or wise to spend the equivalent of what those corms cost in the root shield to do this. But when you start getting up into the thousands and what you've invested, but then also what the income potential is from this, I think the cost then becomes worth it to ensure you don't have crop loss because of an issue. Allison, who you've met on our channel, who grows in Tulsa, she does the same things. And so we bought Root Shield together and then we split the cost because the bag doesn't last very long because it's actually like alive stuff. You can't have it for years. So you need to use it in one growing season. And we don't grow enough to warrant a full 1 pound bag. So we split the cost. That helps. So again, maybe if you go in with a couple growers and you divide it up, that might work for you. But if you are growing on a smaller quantity, please don't be stressed about the Root Shield thing. Don't panic. If you are growing in the thousands, I think you should look into it as kind of a safety net to prevent any weird stuff going on that might be in your soil. So what we're going to do is we're going to empty the water. Eric's going to make up the Root Shield mix. We're going to soak all the corms for about 15 minutes in the Root Shield. We'll drain it and then we'll get the buckets out to the field and we'll start laying them out in our center row to start planting. I'm going to have Eric and the kids be my placers, and I'm going to be the planter because these guys are actually going underneath the soil. And while Eric and the kids are great at the plugs, because this is a depth thing, the kids and Eric get a little bit panicked on getting it at the right depth because we especially don't want them to go too deep. That would be a problem. And these guys only go 1 inch or 2 under the soil. And so for them to go too deep would be an issue. Eric doesn't want that on his conscience. So, okay, Eric asked about pre-sprouting and why we don't, and then like how we plant them if there's a certain direction I can show. We don't pre-sprout. A lot of the growers in our area don't pre-sprout. The reason we don't is our soil temperature is still warm. We're not getting hard freezes. There's going to be a chance for these guys to root in and break ground and see the fluffy green and grow nice roots before we start getting into like the deep cold of winter. And because of that, it just saves a step. I don't have to buy the soil. I don't have to spend the time planting them all in the trays and monitoring them and keeping them at the right temperature to pre-sprout. I don't have to do that. Some farms do pre-sprout for a couple reasons. A lot of growers that can plant in late winter, early spring, they will get pre-sprouting inside to give them a jump start because they're going into harsher conditions and they want to get the process going. That totally makes sense. We can't plant in spring. We warm up too quickly. Other ones pre-sprout because they just want to make sure that every single corm they plant out in their expensive tunnel has roots and you don't have any dead spots. That totally makes sense to me. Because other growers that I respect and do well here in Tulsa don't pre-sprout, and we didn't pre-sprout last year and things went fine, I'm going with that again, mainly to save soil money and time and stress of just trying to pre-sprout them, and that's something I haven't done before. So I don't need to pre-sprout. I think if you're in like zone 7-ish and warmer, you probably don't need to pre-sprout at all. Zone 5 and up, you guys are probably looking at pre-sprout for various reasons. Planting them is super easy. They look like octopuses. Here, I'll do salmone because they're so big. They look like little octopuses. And this is how you plant them. So you plant their feet going down because
1 inch soil.
Yeah, you want like 1 inch above this because this is where the stems and the foliage are going to come out of, and the roots are going to come out under the little octopus legs. It's almost kind of like a dahlia a little bit with like the eyes, like they're going to pop up here. So I'm only putting it about 1 inch because the corm itself is about 1 inch. Well, dahlias have eyes too. Okay. Or a peony, same thing. Peonies, yeah, are at 1 inch. So 1 inch above the top here so that it's a full 2 inches from bottom of the corm to top of soil. That's what we do. So the little legs go down. Little octopus legs go down. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on Root Shield and then get going. I have to work in between baby feeding and all of that, but I'm hoping that once I get going, we're only working with like maybe a couple hours of labor this afternoon.
What's your guess?
Of how long? Eric asked me how long. Like from when I start putting them in the ground.
Like after setup is done. You got the,
and if I have
the grid.
And if I have to pause to feed the baby. Or if I'm just like pure planting time.
Pause doesn't count. I just
okay.
People at WAG. Okay. What last year may have been.
I don't know what a WAG is. I don't have a corporate job.
Estimate.
Okay. 2 hours.
2 hours, put 2,000 in.
Yeah.
1,000.
And I go pretty fast.
You do go fast.
Which also stresses Eric out because he's like, I don't want to do this. I go way slower.
Yeah.
So
I would only get like
yeah,
a quarter of them done.
I know. If I can get into robot Alex mode, I could probably get sub 2 hours. Now it's a competition. Now you have to time me, and we'll have to report back in. I have a challenge, an incentive to get it done. But again, we're on a baby nap eating clock. So let's get going.
Hey, I'm going to be the chemical mixer man. So I'm just going to give a quick primer here if you end up getting root shield. Recommend, most of the time these guys will say, wear your protection, PPE, eye pro, socks, shoes, long sleeve. Here's what the bag looks like. Root shield. This is 1 pound. And like I said, it's very little. The rate is up to it's like 0.2 to 1.2 ounces per gallon. And so we're going to use, like I said, we're splitting this half and half with a local flower farm friend of ours. And we're going to do 4 ounces should be enough for everything we have for 2,000 plugs here to get a little bit on each one. And we're going to do the soak method. You can dip straight into the powder, but that's ridiculous because I think that wouldn't be a very efficient way to distribute some of this. And so it's going to be a little less than 4 ounces in how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to take a 5-gallon like local hardware store bucket. I filled it up. We're going to mix at a rate of probably about 1 ounce per gallon. I think I'll just run the math as like I said, it's a broad range, 0.2 to 1.2 ounces per gallon. Depends on how far you want to stretch it and how comfortable you want to be using it. So there's going to be a little bit of that. Let me just flip the camera around. There's my 5-gallon bucket. I'm going to mix it in there, and then I'm going to probably mix it back and forth with another bucket. I couldn't find an empty 5-gallon bucket, so I'm using this probably 2.5-gallon bucket, I'm guessing. So I'm going to use a scale and mix 4 ounces, probably a little less than 4 ounces into that. And we're going to, well, I'll just do 4 ounces because that's about 5 gallons. And then we're going to start soaking them for 15 minutes each. So that's what it's going to look like. Let me get it mixed because I don't want to hold the camera and do that while I get mixing. All right, we've got a total of probably 12 bags will do, but I only have room for 6. They're going to soak for 15 minutes. And then we will move on with the next set and get planting. This is just like ambient. That was it. That's what she's an ex-collegiate volleyball player. She was the quarterback of a volleyball team in college.
I gave all my muscles to that baby inside, so
we got all the way down there. I'm gonna try to fit 2,000. It should only really fit 1,600, but we're trying to go 4 feet plus. So we're gonna see.
If not, I do have space. I choose to use a knife since the soil is wet from all of our rain. Typically I would just use my finger, but what I do is my left hand I have the corm. I stick in about the 2 inches that I want, which is 1 inch of the corm and then 1 inch of the soil. And I just fluff it, and with my left, so I'm trying to go slow. With my right hand I'm pulling to make a hole. My left hand puts it in, and then with my 2 hands I pinch over. So it's stab, pull, drop, pinch. Stab, pull, drop, pinch. We got all 2,000 ranunculus planted and 600 larkspur, but we were so tired by the end of planting yesterday. It was like 4:30. We felt like our bodies were breaking in half. It was all that we could do to pack up our stuff and clean up. So we didn't actually end up turning on the camera. So we're finishing it here on Sunday. But everything was planted. This whole row, which is about 80 feet by 4 feet, has ranunculus. And then we had probably 100, would you say, honey? About 100 that didn't quite make it, that came here to the front. But all of our ranunculus for next year are planted. What remains in the tunnel is we have 700 anemones to do, and then we are also going to do some group 2, some cool loving snapdragons here in this row, and then all of our planting will be done except for tulips, which feels really exciting. We've worked really hard to get everything ready for fall planting. We're almost done doing all of it, and then we can kind of enter into winter maintenance coast mode of just opening and closing a lot of tunnels every day, but resting until harvest will start in March.
Well, how many more plants do we have total?
To plant?
For spring.
Like left to plant?
Repeat my question.
Okay, Eric's asking how many we have left to plant. We have 600 plugs, 700 anemones, 6,000 tulips. It's sounding more depressing as I count. But then there's
like,
yeah,
tulips are not being
the tulips are not as no, this was the ranunculus was absolutely the hardest to plant. Tulips are easy, but we will get a break all of January and part of February before we start having our next succession of things start to be delivered in February. So I feel like this was a big hurdle because especially between Eric and I, we talked a lot about.
And on this positive note.
What? No, I know. Well, what I'm trying to say is we talked for so long about questioning whether I was going to feel strong enough postpartum to participate in this, and you were feeling overwhelmed of how much I might be out, but I feel really good. I was able to help. I planted at least half of them. I hope Eric jumped in because it was pretty hard on my body, but we got it done. And now the like super stressful time starts a bit while we wait for these guys to root in and break ground so that we know that everything's fine. This is kind of like the 2-week wait that I hate. I usually end up picking like a sacrificial corm that like I'll dig up and check regularly to see like, are you rotting? Are you sprouting? Like what's happening? I usually end up picking one here in the front to check on, and I'll probably do that around Thanksgiving. Be like, do we have any growth action? What's going on? But we copied everything we did last year, and last year went beautifully for ranunculus. So I should be optimistic and not stressed. We learned a lesson. I learned a lesson last year when we planted ranunculus and anemones all together. When we planted the anemones in early February, they started to pump out stems towards like cuttable length stems in early March, which was before our tulips were ready or anything else. Our flower stand hadn't opened yet, so I was kind of having to like just flash sell them on Facebook, which is not ideal. And so this year we're actually going to delay planting the anemones, and so we're probably not going to plant them for another 2 weeks. And because we're separating that and we've never done an anemone video, I think we'll do that. I think we'll film and talk and give anemones all of its particular focus, since ranunculus tends to hog all the attention. But honestly, the anemones our customers absolutely loved because they truly really never seen them before, especially in the colors that we've chosen to grow. And so I think anemones could also be a great addition, and we'll talk about all the reasons why I think you should grow anemones maybe in the next video or two. But thank you for watching, you guys, and we'll see you.